So I want to hand it over now to Maya and to Ruth to present on their Charge Your Ride campaign this summer.
Yes, I'm Ruth Midgley, and I'm here with my colleague Maia Carolsfeld, and we're both from the Capital Regional District. We work in the Climate Action Program. And yeah, we're going to talk today about an e-mobility campaign that we've created for the Capital Regional District. So I don't know where everyone's coming from, but the Capital Regional District is the southern tip of Vancouver Island. So we have 13 municipalities and 3 electoral areas and 20 First Nations, not that have some territory overlapping, but and then also some, that we work more closely with. So I just want to acknowledge where we are physically, Maya and I. We're on the Lekwungen speaking people's traditional territories, namely the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations down here in the core area of Victoria. So first of all, I'm gonna speak for a little bit about our public outreach campaign that Michael was alluding to that happened over the summer. And then I'm gonna hand it off to Maya to talk more about what's kind of continuing on with this campaign at the moment and that's still going on. So mine's a bit of a retrospective and Maya's gonna tell you what's still happening and what's still to come. So this campaign was federally funded through the Zero Emission Vehicle Awareness Initiative. Because we're Capital Regional District, we do often are able to collaborate with a lot of our municipalities to do like a regionally grouped grants. And so we got quite a large grant from NRCan to do this work on behalf of the entire region. It was a collaborative effort with some of those municipalities. We had a great project team from a bunch of different municipalities who helped us shape the project. So this was definitely not just all the CRD's effort. And we also worked with community groups and organizations like Emotive to get this project off the ground. So just wanted to acknowledge that. So the main purpose of the campaign is simple, is to increase e-mobility in the capital region. So when I talk about e-mobility, I'm talking about both electric vehicles and e-bikes. And when we set out to do this project, we thought about doing it in 3 kind of different broad categories. So one of those was commuter-focused in-person outreach, a big public campaign that we would hold mostly over the summer that just happened. And then also when we're thinking about e-mobility increasing in the region, more people getting electric vehicles, more people getting on e-bikes, like what sectors are we going to need to build up in order to facilitate that? And the 2 things we came up with that we thought we could help with in our region is capacity building for certain trades. So like electricians who are going to be installing all the chargers that are going to be needed for when there's more electric vehicles on the road. And like automotive technicians who are going to be maintaining and repairing all these new electric vehicles. And then planning support for charging in Stratas. So, it's easy enough for someone with a single family dwelling to, install the charger they want in their garage, comparatively easier than organizing charging in a multi-unit building like a strata. So we wanted to offer planning support sessions for Stratas who are interested in making their strata EV ready. So I'm going to talk about the commuter-focused in-person outreach part of the campaign, and then Maya's going to talk about the other 2 buckets in a bit. So I'll just quickly go over the goals that we had when we set out to do this, the public outreach part of the campaign. Quite simply, we wanted to build awareness, about like electric vehicles and e-bikes and what options are out there for people, and just really get the message out in a lot of different ways. We wanted to increase the confidence in the technology because, we all grew up with certain kind of cars. We have a lot of lived experience with those cars, and, and then you kind of throw in this whole new vehicle and it runs a totally different way, and you have a lot of questions and you might not be as comfortable with those technologies. And so we wanted to really just find ways to get people a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more confident in these new technologies. We also wanted to tie climate benefits and environmental benefits to these technologies, and because some research in our region has shown that people do really care about climate change. It's a motivating factor for people, and so being able to tie that positive messaging and really help people understand why switching to an e-mobility technology like an electric bike or electric vehicle is really going to help them, help the climate. Like I mentioned several times, that we wanted to promote e-bikes as well. The grant was really focused on electric vehicles, but we managed to kind of slide e-bikes in there. And this was really important to us and our member municipalities because they're more affordable, a little bit more accessible, and also, have so many great co-benefits, like reducing congestion and getting people more active. And so there was just a lot of benefits to also promoting e-bikes alongside electric vehicles as an option for people who want to reduce their carbon footprint and stop driving so much. We are really lucky in the capital region to have quite a robust charging network already. It's got a long way to go, but we really wanted to promote the existing charging network. And this kind of played into the increasing confidence in the technology. We wanted people to know that there's a lot of chargers already out there, public charging, and where they are and how to find them, and really help people kind of picture where they're going to charge their vehicle. And finally, we wanted to increase support for new upcoming charging infrastructure, because we know a lot of our municipalities, and the CRD included, are working on increasing charging, and we just wanted to let the public know that this is happening, this is coming, and increase support for it. So I'll quickly just go over what principles we kind of set out as a project team at the very beginning of the project that we hoped would help guide the campaign and help us reach our goals. Because we were all kind of coming out of the pandemic in the spring when we were planning this, we were like, we need to get off the internet. We need to not just shout into the void. We need to seek people out where they are physically. Also, meet them where they are on terms of where they are on their knowledge journey about EVs and electric bikes. And we also wanted to connect to people in different ways, not just through social media, not online. There's so many great, Emotive's got great videos, there's BC Hydro's got great information about electric vehicles, all the resources are out there online. And so how could we find a different way to connect people? And then we wanted to create a new narrative around electric vehicles, and answer some kind of questions and address some of the myths and concerns that people have through that. Okay, so to get started, we partnered, we hired a consulting firm to help us build a marketing strategy and brand. And they just helped us identify, hone in on who was our target audience, how are we going to find them, and what kind of messaging we were going to employ to best meet our goals. And they helped us come up with the Charge Your Ride branding. And I'll just speak really quickly about why we liked this. We went with this branding. It's because it's inclusive of both electric vehicles and e-bikes, and also we'll be able to continue to use it beyond the campaign to promote new charging as it comes up. And so it's just we really wanted it to be kind of a long-lived brand for us in the CRD, just around electric mobility in general and around charging and all those kind of great things that are coming. So once we had this, we set out to build a mobile electric vehicle and e-bike demonstration unit. So this was, really our intention all along, was to get out in the community and get people really interacting with the technology. And so this unit that we took to all over the region consisted of an electric vehicle that we branded, and it was really quite actually hard to find this electric vehicle for the summer because, as I think most of you know, there was a lot of low availability, still is. And so at first we went to went to dealerships and that was just not happening. And then we went to secondhand, like a used EV dealership. And they were like, oh, you can have this Tesla. And we were like, no, that's not kind of playing into our kind of accessible, EVs are for everyone narrative. So we were like, no, find us something else, please. And they found us this Nissan Leaf, which was definitely more kind of like everyone can see themselves owning a Nissan Leaf. Not everyone can see themselves owning a Tesla, like a luxury vehicle. So we were really happy to get this little Leaf. We took it around the region and it kind of acted as this like great brand ambassador for the campaign. And then all the rest of the stuff that you see here in this photo fit in the Leaf or on the bike one on the back. And we also got our hands on a couple of chargers. This was a really important part. We wanted people to be able to interact with the chargers. They were never hooked up to electricity at the events, but people were able to like see how the charger fit into the charging port in the car. It's like simple as that, because even some people haven't touched a charger or plugged in a car before. And so just being able to like have that first experience with technology, it was really important. And we had a home charger as well to show people this is the kind of thing that you could install at home if you wanted to, if you got an EV, and it looks like this. And and then that led into a lot of good conversations about like rebates around charging and the different types of chargers and where you can find them and all that sorts of things. We also had an e-bike to show off and help spark some conversations, which we also used as a little bit of an incentive. We gave it away at the end of the summer, and so it was used to kind of draw people in and create some excitement. So our primary messaging throughout the campaign really consisted of emphasizing the economic and environmental benefits. We talked a lot about, the transportation emissions involved in the capital region and how people could really reduce those emissions if they switched. We also talked a lot about rebates and the total cost of ownership. There we go. That electric cars, are good for that, and all those sorts of things. We addressed like also common questions and concerns about e-mobility. So, people had questions about range and where to charge and all those sorts of things. And this was like one of the things that we really focused on was being ready to like address like every common question that we could think of. Like for example, people like were weirdly concerned about like batteries exploding, and we had to be ready to answer that kind of question because people hear things or people read things on the internet, and you just want to be. We had I should have mentioned this before, but part of the grant we were able to hire a couple of students who helped us with the outreach campaign over the summer. They were really great, and they created this like binder of like frequently asked questions and just kept adding to it over the summer. And so we just really tried to be as prepared as possible for everybody's questions so that we could alleviate concerns and help create that new narrative that we were talking about. And then the main thing was come to our test drive and drive events, which I will get to, because we really wanted to get people some hands-on experience. We did, although the campaign was focused on, getting those in-person engagements, we did have an advertising and digital engagement strategy. Our students were really awesome. They created some great videos. They got out, they like showed, made videos of like going to a charger and what was that was like. They went on like an EV road trip where they took the car as far as they could and like found a fast charger and then got back to show people that like range wasn't quite the issue that they might imagine and things like that. So that was quite fun. We also had a great online presence where we could show, once we talked to people in person, we'd be like, and you can go here if you have more questions, or like and then that linked to a lot of external sites. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of good resources out there. And then we had a survey contest to win the e-bike, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So we had a goal of attending a minimum of 10 community events. And so when I say community events, that's like events that are happening already that we can just kind of show up to with our demonstration unit and our tent. So like, festivals, farmers markets, busy parking lots even. We just showed up at malls sometimes and or parking lots, and just try to, you know, attend as many different kind of events with different audiences as possible. We wanted to host these 3 test ride and drive events, and we also wanted to offer free e-bike courses. And so we weren't going to be able to do this alone, and so a really important part was partnering with these 3 organizations. So Capital Bike is a not-for-profit in the region that specializes in outreach around bikes and getting people on them. And so they offer really amazing e-bike courses, because an e-bike is a little bit different, and you kind of, people feel a bit more comfortable if they've taken a course. And so they were able to help us with that, and just also share all of their bike knowledge. And we partnered with Emotive to help with the test ride and drive events because they had done them before. It was really, really key. And then the Victoria EV Association, who also helped with those events. So it was definitely a collaborative effort. So because, like I said, we're a capital regional district, we were really trying to make this a regional campaign. We didn't want to just hit people who lived in the core area because that was easy. We wanted to get out there. So our students were awesome. They went to 20 different places throughout the region. They went all the way on to Salt Spring. They went out to Souk. If anyone knows the area, it's like further west there. And then, everywhere in between. And we really just tried to hit a variety. So like I said, it was like, popping up at malls or joining music festivals, things like that. We had 5 free e-bike courses. And then as you can see, the red little dots there on the map, those were our 3 test drive and ride events, which we held in a variety of locations in the region, trying to get those commuters that are driving like long distances, just because that's where you're going to see like the most benefit if someone does switch. So finally, the test ride and drives, like I said, we held them in 3 different locations, and they were all a little bit different, but Emotive was there for all of them, and they helped coordinate with the dealerships in the area to offer free rides of cars. So people could just walk up, sign up for a test drive in one of the cars, and take it out for a spin. And just, people really valued this hands-on experience. And of course, Michael was there with all of his knowledge and answering people's questions. It was really great. And then we had Capital Bike offering these test e-bike rides. So we rented a bunch of e-bikes that people of all different in all different sizes and a few different models too. Then that was interesting because then people could kind of see what kind of e-bikes were out there and what kind of different models you could get. And people just signed up, and then we had their Capital Bike instructors take them on a half an hour test ride, just kind of like a little joy ride around the area, and do a little safety talk beforehand. And people really liked those. They were full the entire time, and people came back just really excited about like how much assist you have going up the hills on an e-bike and things like that. So it just really highlighted how, these experiences, it's just not the same just telling people about it. If they can really feel what it's like to drive a electric car, or what it's like to get on an e-bike, that can really be like beneficial to people. And then another important aspects of the events was the Victoria EV Association coming out. So this is a group of amazing volunteers that all own electric cars and really, really love them and want to show them off. And so they come out to these kind of events, they hold events of their own, where they just show up with their cars and just talk to people about what it's like to own an electric vehicle. And that was really, really valuable, because, there was sometimes like a wait for a vehicle or the bikes to like test them out. But people could just come and talk to a real live EV owner who has like lived experience. What is it like to charge? What's the maintenance been like on your car? That sort of thing. And it's like a really low pressure environment. No one's trying to sell you this car. There's nothing in it for them, other than the fact that they just really like their EVs and want everyone to own one. And so they'll pop their hoods, pop their trunks, and just stood there all day and talked to people. It was really amazing. And just a couple other fun partnerships that came out of these events. We had BC Hydro at one of them. They came with their Chevy Bolt and their display. That was really great. We also had one of them, the Oak Bay Police brought their electric vehicle that they just newly acquired to the event. And that was really cool. It was just kind of cool to see that like everyone's coming on board with this stuff. And the police officer who was in this vehicle was just so stoked to be able to show it off. She loves driving it around and just felt good about it. And that was nice to see. And then one of the events, this van just like pulled up and I was confused. And I was like, hello, you here for, here for the event? And they were like, oh, well, this is our electric van. We heard about your event on the radio and we just wanted to like see if we could show off our van. And I was like, yeah, sounds great. I'd never seen an electric van like this before. And it was really cool. It was just this couple who owned a yacht business and they had an electric van and they were just stayed for a few hours and talked to people. And so, not only did we have a variety of cars for people to look at, people could see that, hey, there's like electric technology has come so far that you even have an electric van now that like could be used for a business. So that was really cool, like just random happening that they heard about the event and wanted to participate. So these kind of events just kind of really helped fuel like a sense of community around electric vehicles. So just quickly some lessons and challenges around the test drive and ride events. As I mentioned before, there's not that many EVs available. And so this was challenging in two ways. Meant that like the dealerships didn't have a lot of stock to come out with for test drives. So there was fewer cars than we would have liked for people to be able to actually get in and test drive. And also when, we talked to people and a lot of people were like, yeah, I'm on board. I've called my dealership and I'm on a list, but it's taking so long, or like, how am I supposed to get an EV? And so just the timing of this campaign, we had to do it this last summer because of the grant. But like, I wouldn't say it was the most ideal time to be trying to push electric vehicles just because they're hard to get. In the same vein, with inflation and everything, cost of EVs remains a barrier. Even with rebates, people were still kind of like reluctant. They like have trouble with the upfront cost, even if they understand that the total lifetime cost of an electric vehicle is advantageous. So that's still something that needs to be worked on. Dealerships don't like Saturdays. This was some feedback we got through Michael, that it would have been better if we'd hosted the events on Sundays, just because dealerships it's a very busy day for them and like they don't want to come out. They don't want to leave their dealerships. And I think this also, it was a factor, was just that because they weren't having trouble selling their EVs, and so there wasn't a lot of incentive for them to come out and try and get customers at our events. And so, like I said, it was probably not the most ideal summer to do this campaign, but we worked with what we had. So venue selection, I just wanted to speak a little bit about, just because it's hard to find places to host these events. You need like a good sized parking lot, and ideally access to washrooms. This is something we encountered. It's like that, logistically speaking, it's hard to get porta potties to these places and things like that. So you want to be near washrooms. But also our most successful event was definitely the one that was near other foot traffic. And so just if you're trying to pick a location for this kind of thing, you gotta find a big enough parking lot. But if it's ideal, if it's near some shopping or other kind of busy area, because some of our parking lots were great, but just a little bit off the beaten track. And so we didn't get that kind of coincidental traffic. And also, we were really surprised how knowledgeable people are. It was a biased group. The people who were interested to come out to these events had a pretty high level of knowledge. But we had to really know our stuff. People were asking really tricky questions. They weren't just trying to. They knew about charging, they needed to know exactly what amperage that their electrician would have to deal with when they were installing their charger. It was like really like next level questions, which was really encouraging because it means people are really far along the knowledge pathway. But we also had to be right there with them or ahead of them, and so that was definitely a challenge, just to like be able to be experts in all of this. So our students did great; they learned a lot. And there's a lot of inquiries about e-bike charging, which surprised me, and it's something that we're continuing to look at more. A lot of our focus has been on public charging for electric vehicles, but people are also concerned about where they're going to be able to charge their e-bike. There's like different opinions about this. People would have to be riding their e-bikes pretty like fast and far in order to need to charge. But some people are commuting from pretty far out with their e-bikes. And so it might be something that we need to be facilitating with some more accessible charging, either public or working with employers or other organizations to kind of create a little bit of a network of places people can charge their e-bikes. And finally, more bikes. The bikes were really popular, and so we could have used even more bikes for people to get on, test them out. And then finally, I'll just leave you with the survey results. There we go. Take this with a grain of salt. It was a very informal survey, but we did have 1,500 people respond to it, and we asked several questions, but one of them was, how likely are you to purchase an electric vehicle? And it was quite encouraging. The entries were quite regionally distributed, so we got a good sample that way. But 53% indicated that they were extremely likely or somewhat likely to, or likely within the next 5 years to purchase an electric vehicle, and only 15% said they were not at all likely or not sure. So that's really encouraging. People are on board. We just need to help them get there. There were similar results for e-bikes, which was also good. Okay, so that's it for me on the public outreach side. I'm going to pass it to Maia, and then I think we'll have question time.
Thanks, Ruth. So my role here at the CRD started kind of just at the tail end of the public outreach campaign that Ruth was describing there. So when I was brought on board, I kind of took over the latter portion, the phase 2, as we've been calling it, of Charge Your Ride. And primarily this section of Charge Your Ride has been focusing so far on capacity building for trades, as well as trying to engage with folks that own strata units and kind of working with that kind of finicky piece of getting chargers into multi-unit residential buildings. And speaking to the capacity building for trades piece for a moment here, the main target audiences that were identified initially were the electrical contractors, automotive technicians. Can we go back to, there we go, and fleet managers. And, kind of looking at this from the perspective of, these are service professionals that are needing to, maybe get some new skills or need to refresh on certifications or understand kind of the new landscape that they're encountering in their jobs. And of course, as people on the call might be aware, it's also kind of a tough audience to get in contact with, just because most of these folks are extremely busy, and so getting the information out there and getting connected is you're almost operating with the understanding that you're trying to compete for their time far more than, say, maybe a fun weekend family event might be doing, because often these things are happening in the evening or they're happening during a lunch and learn, and so you're just trying to understand how that might work. So we wanted to come to the table with an understanding that there are a lot of potential areas of information already available for different trades audiences. However, seems to be some gaps in terms of trying to get people in the room and answering their questions and just making sure that they're aware that these resources exist. So there's a combination of both webinars and in-person info sessions on what's out there. And so we started off in the lower left-hand corner there. There's an image for promotional image for one of the webinars we did in collaboration with the Electrical Joint Training Committee, just doing an information session on the electric vehicle infrastructure training program, which is a new certification that is promoted by BC Hydro kind of across the province as like really the standard for electricians when they're going to install electrical service equipment for EVs in a home. And so that was a really handy opportunity for us to not only engage with EJTC, but also to get them in contact with places like Camosun so that they can actually provide this training and the testing, which strangely enough also has to happen in person, even though the training course itself is online. And they weren't able to, up until now, offer that testing here on the island. So we were able to kind of connect them with Camosun in order to make that happen, hopefully in the new year. In addition to that, we also did an in-person info session with Camosun College directly. They have a great 2-week-long course for automotive technicians to kind of get started on understanding the nature of EV maintenance and what not only safety considerations, but just kind of what to be aware of, particularly with such a rapidly changing industry. And it's the kind of course that is keeping really up on the forefront of what's coming out and what people are really experiencing. And Patrick, you can see him at the front of the picture speaking to a group of people, was really quite knowledgeable on just how much of a constant headache this kind of is for automotive technicians as well as EV owners. We actually had the Victoria EV Association come out to that event, and it was a really great back and forth between owners and automotive technicians and kind of answering a lot of tough questions and, you know, assuaging some fears and frustrations that have been experienced out in the wild, so to speak. So yeah, it was a really good night, and Camosun College has indicated that they're interested in doing something along those lines again in the future with us if we're interested. So that was really good. We can go to the next slide. So for these target audiences, we do have ongoing outreach expected in the next coming months. The end of this particular grant is the end of March 2023. And so there's still opportunity and interest in doing some additional outreach for the next few months for both electrical contractors and automotive technicians. And for fleet managers, we have not yet launched the outreach portion of this grant. We're still gathering information on what would be the most helpful format for that particular piece of outreach, recognizing, of course, that going back to our priorities of how we wanted to develop this program, we don't want to shout into the void or recreate too much of what's already out there. And so really trying to connect with people that already have this information or ways of trying to engage folks in a manner that they haven't been engaged before. So hopefully some kind of fleet symposium or other event is expected in the coming months. Okay, next slide. And so for buildings, so multi-unit residential buildings, specifically Stratas, we worked closely with Madis, who I see on the call from Plug-in BC, as well as a lady named Wendy from VIZOA, which is the Vancouver Island Strata Owners Association, to do some online outreach for folks who are interested in learning more about how to get EV chargers into Strata buildings. And we approached this audience, this kind of segment of Charge Your Ride, with the same intention of trying to figure out how best to engage people on this matter. Initially with the idea that we might do some kind of networking event or peer-to-peer learning situation, but realizing that we probably needed to start something a little bit more basic. And so we wanted to kind of engage with Plug-in BC's really great existing webinar content. And so Madis was very gracious in helping us with that and doing these the presentation. We did 2 presentations with her, and Wendy also hosted her own presentation just this last weekend on working with your Strata Council. I've haven't had a chance to look at the recording, but I hear it was quite a vibrant conversation as well. So, and we're working on some ongoing development of resources specifically for strata owners. So something that was identified as potentially of use would be some kind of like EV ready workbook where it either as a editable PDF or a printable PDF to be able to essentially use it as a resource for the strata owner to guide them through the process of gathering information, taking notes, figuring out what their next step is along the journey, which is admittedly quite complicated and has a lot of branching paths. So that's something that's currently under development that we hope to be able to roll out soon. Next slide. And finally, the last thing that we're working on around this is more an overarching piece of Charge Your Ride, not just for capacity building for trades and strata, but also taking another look at the branding and the content that was created at the beginning of this project on our web pages, just to make sure that it has a robustness and a longevity to it that we can take it forward into 2023 and beyond. Noting that obviously we're working with quite a few disparate audiences, and that's a lot of content and it's a lot of specificity, and it's a lot of stuff that exists elsewhere on external websites that we don't necessarily want to just keep repeating the same words over and over again. We would much rather be a waypoint for people to come to if they're like, oh yeah, I should, you know, see what the CRD is saying, and then we can then point to them to where they should go, and be able to do that in a, you know, an easy way that is engaging, and hopefully they understand what they need to understand by the end of it. So that is something that we're reviewing currently with a consultant. And so hopefully that will result in what we're currently calling a suite of resources, or like a Charge Your Ride toolkit. So more to come on that. And I think that's all I've got. Yeah.